where have you guys seen the biggest growth in women's sports? And obviously this is going to be probably a big different answer for all of you, I think. And why or how do you think that growth occurred? Where did you see that growth start, and how has it kind of enhanced over the course of your time in athletics?
I can start. When I went to high school and to college, we were coached by people that did not have opportunities to play in sports. Especially in college, they coached just because they wanted to give us a chance to play. And I see the athletes nowadays are really getting some fine coaching, and their training facilities are top notch. You actually have a weight room. We never even had a weight room. We had a universal gym where we lifted. I shared it with the football team, so you know how much we really got to lift. But the facilities and opportunities that the women have nowadays is tremendous.
I think if you look at just about everything, travel, uniforms. We used to have one set of uniforms that spread between all the teams that we had. The first thing I remember from high school, we were just right before Title IX, and we didn't have the only thing we had for opportunities was gym class or summer softball team. And I remember having a play day with basketball where we brought in another school. I think it was 10-minute running halves. And the score was like 10-8 at the end of close to the end of the game. We were behind, and somebody threw the ball up in the bleachers. And by the time we got the ball, the game was over. We lost. But for us, we got to participate. We got to be a part of something. Now kids are almost getting burnt out. They have so much opportunity starting as kindergartners. And we both got to play, 3 sports a year. And you finish one, you didn't pick up that ball until the next season started. And now it's becoming a year-round thing, good and bad out of both. And obviously that's why the play has got so much better. They spent so much more time on individual techniques and so on. For us, it was about participation. We get to play. And you lose a game, you win a game. That was almost secondary to the fact that we got to be out on the floor.
Right. Yeah, and for me growing up, like my mom didn't get to play sports. She grew up in Colorado. The only thing she could do was you either were on the cheer squad or you twirled a baton. So I remember, when I grew up, I appreciated every opportunity I got just because, she didn't get a chance. She had 8 brothers. She had to watch them all play basketball. Like, really? But, for me, I didn't have AAU. You had AAU, same. Like, we just had to do travel basketball. But I got, by that time I had, sanctioned sports were, a big part of it. But, AAU wasn't a thing. Now to see what opportunities you had is tremendous.
I grew up in Iowa, so I played 6-on-6 half-court basketball until I was a junior in high school. And I think people, when I tell them that, they can't believe it. But so for me, I played a former Dragon, Christy Stengel, was one of my teammates in high school. We played 6-on-6 until we were juniors in high school. And I was so excited the day that the state switched over to 5-on-5 for the whole state that I was getting my hair cut. And I got it real tight in the back and put 5-on-5 in the back of my head because I was so excited to play 5-on-5, play basketball. I want to play in college. I didn't know how I was going to explain that I could play that game, play in the half-court game of 6-on-6. I think women's sports, we see it on TV. We can watch it almost every night. You can find a way to watch it on TV. It wasn't like that when we were growing up. Your parents would take you. You knew the rules enough, the college rules enough to know that you could get a couple free tickets. So your parents would come, we'd be able to just go watch maybe a college game in person, but I don't remember ever seeing many on TV. Pat Summit, you could see the big Final Four for basketball, but you didn't see a lot more. You didn't see softball. I don't remember seeing softball, volleyball. Yeah. Just so many more sports are on television now, and that exposure's been tremendous.
Yeah, when I went to high school, we had a choice of 2 sports. It was basketball or track, and that was it. And on Thursday nights, once a month, we got together for GAA, Girls Athletic Association, where we got together, where we would get to play floor hockey and did some different events or sports. And I always looked forward to that.
And I agree with what Mary Ann said, too, a little bit ago. We weren't coached by people who knew what they were doing. It was... Even when my freshman year here at Morin State was the first year we had a softball program. And we had a bunch of players that had played some summer softball. And we went to the administration and said, we'd really like to start a softball team. NDSU had it, UND had it. There's some different schools. And they said, well, we don't have a coach. And so we went to our basketball coach. And we said, would you be our softball coach this spring? She said, well, I don't know anything about it. And we said, but we do, we'll help you. We need to have an advisor. So she agreed, and she was fantastic. She ultimately made decisions, but she took input from the players. And because of her, we were able to start a softball program. And did pretty well in the course of 4 years. So,
yeah, I think our generation kind of takes for granted what we have and the opportunities we have, and I think you guys need to share that too, because sometimes we forget of that history and the opportunities that you guys weren't able to have. And I know growing up it was a lot different for me because I grew up watching women's basketball players and aspiring to be like them, and I'm very fortunate to have had that and had parents and coaches that believed in me to get me here today. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and thank you guys for leading the way.
I guess the other side of that is obviously we've talked about how much growth is and how much progress has been made, but yet there's still so much progress to be made. I wanted to get your guys' thoughts in terms of where can women's athletics go? How can it continue to follow this upward trajectory? Because I think now, especially in this day and age, I just think of like a Caitlin Clark, just the global impact that an athlete like that has had on women around the world. I mean, where can women's athletics go, and what more progress can be made in the near future to continue to see that global impact that has been made over the course of the last 4 or 5 years? I feel like that trajectory has gone up so much in women's athletics specifically.
I would say the trajectory for women's sports has gone up tremendously, but there are also some things that cause me pause and fear about the trajectory. Natalie, how many of your teammates are thinking about getting into coaching? See, a lot of in our era, a lot of us thought we really think we want to get into coaching. And I don't think as many former players are looking to get into coaching as it was in the past. So my fear would be who will step up to coach, and I want more women coaching. And so my concern is that if we don't have former student athletes, female student athletes who are willing to coach, that men step into the role. And there are some wonderful male coaches of women's sports. I'm not saying that there aren't. I'm just saying that that's a concern for me as the trajectory goes up. Where will the coaches come from?
Is that because of the pay inequity, that women don't get paid as much as men do?
Actually, I think men are more interested in I think there's more money now. We're seeing more money with the ESPN contract and everything, at least at the Division I level. We see a lot of really good female coaches can move up faster if they want to be at Division I where there's more money. We also see, it's been all along, that some women, when they feel like they have to choose between a family or, that hinders it a bit. But I think that there's a fear of burnout a bit with the current student athlete because they've been playing travel ball and everything else for so long. And also there's a little bit of, they're smart, they've done well at school, they know they can get themselves on a professional track and make more money with less stress and fewer hours. So I think that, I don't want to speak for your generation, Natalie, but those are some of the things that come to mind when I think about it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think some of it's good and bad. Like also we're dreaming big and we're going for bigger things, so that's good too. But giving back to a sport that's done so much for you is really important too. But even like not just coaching, even reffing or like a kids team or just being like that figure for them, I think is important.
Yeah, because I think people need to keep showing up still, because it still grinds my gears to, and even male athletes in this facility, why don't you come to our game? Well, you guys can't dunk it. I've heard that comment I don't know how many times. And, girl dad, the hashtag, a lot of whatever. it's all out there. This is what I have to say. So males raising daughters, you better appreciate the fact that you need to fight for your kids, your daughters, because we still make 75 cents to a dollar based on a male. Okay. How many other inequities are there, male to female? So when I hear another male athlete, or I see them leave our basketball game, you better put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And when your daughter's on the other side of that, when it's their kid, how would you like them to be treated? That's still how I feel to this day. So if you're going to be #girl dad, you better step up to the plate. So
I had a lot of former players that have done some coaching from junior high all the way up to D1. There's only a couple of them that have stuck with it. And part of it is the whole family deal, the time put in. Some of it's the stress. Some of it is just a couple of my kids, the two gals, Petersons, were both starting with UND Division I volleyball. After a while, they said, this is my life 24 hours a day. I've got other things I want to do. And so that's part of it too. Financially, nice thing about the high school level is everybody's on the same pay scale. If you're a head coach in basketball, it doesn't matter if you're boys or girls, you're on a certain step, it doesn't matter. You're going to get the same either way. The sport might change. Hockey, football might make more because of the safety issues and so on. But I think once you get out of high school, you start to see some of those indiscrepancies with the pay as well.
We've been following a bit. Some high school girls basketball teams have struggled to get numbers enough to have a varsity team. It's happening in Nebraska. It's happening in Iowa. And some are pointing to maybe it's the rise of girls wrestling. And I don't think it is. I don't think it is. You can't say that that's the case. We know that it's a bit pressure. The volleyball is really popular right now. Mm-hmm. Volleyball is kind of king in regards to women's participation. If you're recruiting a 6-foot student athlete right now, volleyball's a lot of time their top choice, and so it's great for the sport of volleyball and good for them. But how is that affecting the other sports? And the sports specialization is a concern. And the burnout is a concern as well.
I think because I coached in the junior high for many years, I would see girls be not interested in basketball. One, because it's work. You have to run compared to volleyball. Two is if they're not on a traveling team by 3rd or 4th grade, they think they're not good enough. I mean, that's kind of what they're seeing. Or that's what I saw too, is that they weren't on traveling teams. They weren't in the elite group. And why should I put my money into that? I'm going to play volleyball where I don't have to work so hard. Right. I mean, volleyball players do work hard. It's just a different training.
It's different.
Yeah.
Less physical.
Yep.
More makeup.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what's going to have to happen is the sport of basketball, at least women's girls basketball, I think giving back. I think that Natalie, you're going to have to, we're going to have to get our current varsity teams in high school or our college teams interacting with young people. It's not just far-fetched Caitlin Clark. Yeah, she's amazing, but they need to see physical people right in front of them to show how much fun the game of basketball is and give them the confidence that they can do it someday,
I guess more geared towards, MSUM specifically. Obviously, Pam, you probably have a different thought on this, but obviously I think it pertains to your time at Augustana too, regardless. But what kind of lessons did you guys learn in your time on campus as a student athlete that have kind of transitioned into your life even today? I think that there's so many life lessons that you take out of athletics on and off the court that transition into, what you're going to do professionally or whether you go into coaching, what have you. What are some of those things that have kind of been at top of mind for you all post-graduation saying, okay, this experience as a student athlete helped me to get here or helped me to succeed in a certain area of my life, either professionally or whatever that may be?
I know for me, had I not participated in sports here, I never would have gotten into coaching. And that was a huge part of what I did in my teaching, outside of the classroom. And I, especially back in that era, that's probably one of the reasons I went into teaching and coaching, is to stay involved in athletics, because there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity, other than once you're done with college, that was it. There's summer softball, yeah, but there's no playing anything else. And so to me, just the fact that I was able to participate on a team helped me for my next 50 years of my career. Well, it makes me sound old.
Yeah, it was the same for me. Like, I didn't have, when I stepped on campus, there was no way I was thinking I was going to be a college coach. Yeah, but you got into it, and then coach was like, why don't you do this? And I was like, oh, how do you do that? But, I wasn't going to play. My body couldn't have played after 5 years of playing college basketball. So, yes, it was a way to stay involved in sports and be able to hopefully teach the next generation, things that I had learned a lot from coach how to do, so I just appreciate having the ability to pass it on. But tough, it teaches you toughness. Life is hard, and being a college student athlete is harder than most people think. But so many life lessons are learned, and you can go through so much in your life that you have no clue that you can. In college athletics, it just teaches you so many lessons on just being relentless in whatever you're doing. Like, you're never going to bow down to a challenge.
Yeah, I would agree. That's one thing that you guys have exemplified, is just being resilient. And one thing I've learned is not everything's going to be easy. You're going to struggle. There's highs or lows, and most of the time you're in the lows. You're not in the highs. And we work for those, and I don't think everyone sees all that. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. Another thing is being able to play basketball here. It's kind of showed me my career path, and I want to work with athletes in sports psychology and also the mental side of it, because there's a lot of struggles mentally with the sport and how you're performing and things like that. And being able to get that opportunity to know how I can give back and improve that is really awesome.
And I knew since I was a junior in high school that I wanted to be a teacher and a coach, because I had a good role model as a high school coach in basketball. Well, she did basketball and track and never played either sport herself, but studied it. And I just knew that was my path. And because I only had a choice of 2 sports in high school, when I walked down the halls at NEMSIC when I was a freshman, somebody said, hey, why don't you come and play field hockey? And I go, what's that? And I said, yeah, well, I'll do something to get myself in shape for basketball. And played it. And, I just learned that being a 3-sport athlete, I learned how to work on my time management and my work ethic. I was a farm girl, so I kind of had a work ethic, but it really made me work harder as a college athlete, because I wasn't probably as skilled as some of the other athletes. So I had to really work on my game.
I would just say, work hard when no one else is watching
you.
And we did that as athletes training, and that life lesson has helped me in my professional career to work hard when no one else is looking, and also to not be afraid of failing. Everyone loses games. We had to pick ourselves up, come to the gym the next day and practice and try to get better. Or you go on a losing streak and you try to figure out what's happening, what's the problem solving, and all of it. All of those problem solving life lessons of struggle, they help you so much in the professional. Like when you get into, and right now my concern is I have teenagers. My kids are teenagers, and I watch and want to make sure that they've experienced some failure now, so that when they go to college, they aren't, or they're at their first job, they're not experiencing it for the first time. They have to understand that failure is a part of learning, and not to be afraid of it. Just learn, adapt, grow, and be stronger from it.
One other thing I was going to mention is I was really an advocate for, when I was teaching, for kids to be a 3-sport athlete, or a multi-sport athlete, I should say. Just because, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because it might not work out in that sport. By the time you're in high school, you're going to kind of find 1 or 2 sports that are going to suit you better than, all three of them or 4 sports that you were in.
And Marianne, you just in your prior answer, you brought up role models, and I kind of wanted to ask you all about that. I know everybody has their role model or somebody who influenced them to get into athletics or to get into whatever they are in their life. I mean, who was that for you guys? And I think the second part of that question would be, why is it so important for female athletes to have positive female role models in their life as they go throughout, whether it be high school, college, beyond that? Why is it so important to have good female role models in your athletic career surrounding you as you kind of go through that point in your life?
I guess for me, I had a FIA teacher in high school I got to know quite well through summer softball, and I was trying to decide what I'm going to do. She goes, "Well, you're gonna be a teacher." Okay, and it just kind of, and there weren't a whole lot of options back then, and I thought, okay, so I hit the teaching path, and I'm not sure what I would have done had she not said that to me. Hadn't really thought about it, but. Our role models were people who were willing to organize, willing to move forward, take the chances, stand up for girls sports. When I started at Moorhead, there was a girls athletic director, if you want to call her that, Paula Bauk, who fought with the guys for everything. And the guys didn't necessarily care for her all that much because she just fought with them. And bless her heart, I didn't have to fight because by the time I got there, she had fought those battles and made my life so much easier. And we didn't agree on a lot of things, but I owe her so much for my career as far as a coach goes. She opened up doors and took care of things that I didn't have to. And I think there's a lot of people out there that had done that.
Well, mine's Coach Nelson. Similar, like I wasn't thinking coach till my second year of college, and Coach was like, "What are you going to do?" And I was in business at the time. She's like, "Why?" I'm like, "I don't know. I grew up on a farm. It was business." So she, said, "Why don't you want to go into college coaching?" So I was like, "Oh, after that, then I figured it all out." But Coach when I chose a college, I did honestly want to play for a woman because I'd only had 2 male high school coaches, and one of them it was a terrible experience. In my freshman year of high school, I had a woman coach, and I really appreciated her, but then, pay wasn't enough, so she moved on to a different profession. And so when Coach recruited me, I totally related to her, and she reminded me of the freshman coach. Anyway, but Coach has fought for us for so many things on this campus, and, every day, she talks to us, day in and day out about, elevating women. And I didn't really appreciate it probably as much as I should have when I was a player, but now I totally get it and why she fought so hard, because when we're playing, we're just oblivious to some of these things, but Coach has seen all of this stuff and she's done the fighting, and now we need to continue the fight for women as well, because we're not there yet. But Coach has, completely changed my life. I loved playing for her. I mean, I was able to be passionate self. She let me be who I wanted to be and try to put the reins on me, which some coaches did. So, Coach is I'm forever indebted to her. So I can talk about her forever. So
I've said that many times. I wish I would have had a coach like Carla. I'd love to have played for her. And she's just been an advocate for us trailblazers. That's what we call ourselves, the women that went to school in the 70s and 80s and didn't have the opportunities that Natalie has had. But she has fought for us, and she wasn't even our coach. So, I mean, I really appreciate it. She's wonderful. You guys are lucky to have her.
My role model was my dad. He was a high school teacher and coach. And so not very many women were. So he was who I followed his footsteps. But I would say I had many peers that I learned so much from when I was coaching. Then I also saw I needed to look ahead There need to be people above the coaches in administration that can support the coaches so that they can be having and doing their work and feel like they have support so that we can keep more females in coaching. So many administrators at the Division I level, many of those individuals never played college sports or never coached college sports. So when I think about them sitting in rooms making decisions that will affect all the student athletes' lives, are they really thinking about it, or are they thinking about their decisions they're making are only possibly driven by money? And we need to be also be thinking about the impact all of it is going to have on our student athletes and our coaches and our athletic trainers and everyone who's involved in the whole athletic department. So I felt like I've had role models as a coach and also role models as an administrator. And I really think it's important to have, more women administrators ahead of the coaches and to make sure to be looking out for them.
Yeah, and I would add to that, when you're having those conversations, like encouraging student athletes to use their voice and be a part of those conversations. And you guys have done a great job including us in that, but I know that's not the same everywhere. And that's who it ultimately affects, so including them. But my biggest role model growing up was my basketball coach starting in 3rd grade. And not really just because of basketball, it was he always believed in me on and off the court. And he instilled in me, he would send me letters, he would meet with me after practice, and it was like, okay, Natalie, like, you're great at basketball, you really love basketball, but you need to look at the big picture. Like, number 1, your faith. Number 2, your family and your friends. Number 3 is your school. And then 4th is basketball. And that's really stuck with me because it really is more than a game. So I go out of my way to do all those things the right way and also just set an example for other people.
What continues to inspire you all about women's athletics? There's been a lot of discussion of, the burnout of being a part of athletics, whether it be high school, college, or what have you, the pay inequity, all of these sort of things. It seems like on paper it would be something that would say, I'm going to throw in the towel on this. What continues to inspire you all about women's athletics to continue to move the needle forward and grow women's athletics in general?
I think it's the quality people. I mean, there's so many good women, and the potential that there is for it, I mean, is still so high. And, we just need to keep investing in women and keep them in sports so something doesn't die out. You don't lose the Caitlin Clark effect, all of that. Like you just need to keep elevating it. Just because we are so good once we get into things and we just give them the opportunity. That's my opinion.
I would say remember your why. I think sometimes you get caught up in all the highs and the lows, and remember why you're doing it, whether it's for your family or it's to give back to the sport or because you love it. Really fall back into that.
For me, when I'm watching, whether it's volleyball, basketball, whatever on TV, or like this year, the WNBA lost 7 coaches or something like that. And so we started keeping track right away. How many are being replaced by a female? And unfortunately, more were replaced by males than by females this year. And that was a little disheartening. I'll also look at a game and go, hey, they got 2 female officials out there today. You don't see many high school female officials around our area, but we are starting to see more of them at the national level. The same thing with volleyball. When it comes down to the Final Four and we're watching, it's like, who are you going to cheer for? I'm going to cheer for those 2 teams because they have a female coach.
Yeah.
And that may be a stupid reason, but
well, this is the first year that a woman had ever won it.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yes. And it's been technically it was a female sport long before the guys ever got involved, and yet they all felt they could jump in and coach and do all this. And for whatever reason, like we said before, with time commitments and so on, but that's one of the things I'm always watching is how many more the participants are getting there, and the level of play is definitely rising every year. But now I'm looking at that next level. Do we have female coaches on the bench? Do we have female officials on the floor? Do we have female administrators, on these teams? And that's kind of where I keep looking.
I'd have to agree with a lot of what Karin said, but when I was teaching, I coached because I wanted to be that role model for some female athletes. I know I wasn't going to be a role model for all of them, but I just wanted to be that role model for the ones that were, that needed a role model. And I guess that's kind of why I kept coaching and encouraging other kids to be active. And now as a retired teacher, coach, I just maintain a healthy, active lifestyle myself so that, I run into former students all the time and say, oh God, look, you're still doing stuff. And, give myself a little pat on the back. It makes me feel good that they're noticing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would say that, the statistics say that 85 to 90% of women who make it to the C-suite level and in, the professional world, they played sports.
Yep.
They are the leaders. They are the leaders. And I see it with young people because my kids are, who's volunteering to do things when we have, whether it's a SAC initiative or we have more participation with women than we do with the men. It's all going to add up to more women continue to rise because they're valuing their education, all of those reasons why that they should continue to move up whatever profession they decide to go in. But I think that if they had some sports background, that's going to help them have the confidence to keep pushing up.
Yep.
I guess my last point for you all is what is one piece of advice? I think this is such a good question I try to ask every time we do something like this is what advice would you give to your former self? Like a young athlete, dreaming big, wanting to make it to the next level. What piece of advice would you give to that young athlete, whether it be your former self or a young athlete?
I think part of back to what you said about problem solving. When I played, I was trying to be perfect, do everything perfect, and at the end of the day, I've learned more about my failures and just problem solving. You don't realize how much problem solving you do every single day. It's part of your life. Those word problems you had in math, you hated when you were growing up. That's an everyday thing. And just, figuring it out on the floor, quick responses, just forget about being perfect. Just figure out a way to just problem solve, move on to the next thing. So don't get stuck on the little things. Just move on, keep trudging forward.
I would say, we talked about, just work hard, and whatever you do it hard, full speed, and with confidence. If you have confidence, nobody's gonna know. And then also enjoy it and rely on the people around you. You're not always gonna be the best at your game, and rely and lean on those people that support you and are around you.
I'd say too is just to have more fun and appreciate the people around you, appreciate your teammates. We did a little bit of that, but you guys do so much team building and stuff like that now as athletes and coaches. We never did that. We went to practice and that was it. And then we went to Kesey for lunch or dinner, and that was pretty much our day.
And you probably talk more about what you did at Kesey than in practice.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. You remember more about the bus rides and all
Yeah.
that.
I would say the same thing is, you got to enjoy what you do. You have to have fun with it. Because most of us were 3-sport athletes back then, it was easy for us. I didn't play field hockey with Marianne, but I played basketball with her. So you have that connection. And then there's somebody else I played volleyball with, but I didn't play basketball with. And so you have that connection. I think that's what made our Trailblazer reunion so much fun. We had 50-some people from 6 different sports that all overlap somehow. And I guess if I just had a piece of advice for myself, it'd say keep in better touch with them.
I would have, I was so serious when I played. I was I didn't ever feel comfortable smiling a whole lot. You felt like, it was short point guard. I got to be acting tough out there. But one of my favorite things as an administrator right now is when somebody's in the groove enough in any of the sports that we're able to watch, when they can crack a little smile and they can have that confidence. Watching the Nebraska semifinal game when they lost to, was it Tennessee or Texas, or who did they lose to in volleyball before Penn State ended up with?
That was so long ago.
So the D1 semifinals, Nebraska's in it, and they're playing. I think they were playing Penn State, and it was a 5-setter, and it went to late. It went really late. Yeah. So when they came out of huddle in the 5th game, looking at the nonverbal body language of the Nebraska, they were up 2-0, and they had just let Penn State come back and then tie it up 2-2. Oh, they were tight. They were tense. Oh, in the Penn State, they were loose and yes, smiles on their faces. They were ready to go. So there's a time and a place. Like, I'm not saying you can smile all the time, but I would have encouraged my younger self to enjoy it a bit more, smile a bit more. You can still be intense, but not everything has to be so serious. You can really enjoy it. And actually your performance, if you're loose like that, you might be able to take it up another level,